When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous. About the past and about the future.
Welcome back to Draftvice. We are here. We're doing a fantasy episode, and I got our buddy Jordan Freed, local comedy legend, international comedy legend, international man of mystery, and to his left, international man of men, Harry Van Ness. Which is that what the Dutch the Dutch name is for? Harry Van Ness? Is that Van? It's like Loch something. No, that's Loch Ness's.
No, that's Scotland. Is the
That's
Loch
Scotland.
Ness Van? That's pretty much every last name from the Netherlands.
Every last name.
Yeah,
Van Dutch, Van Net.
yeah, Van Der Esch, Van Dam.
And yeah, we're talking fantasy. Today we were talking about 5 biggest bust predictions. We're also talking about 5 guys you'd want on your team, but most likely won't get. And we're also going to talk a little bit about Dynasty because our buddy Jordan here, he's got a Dynasty team.
All right.
Yeah.
So we'll start out with that because it's just a little bit of banter chatter. Now we get to know our buddy Jordan and our buddy Harry.
Also, I got some friends in my league who probably want to hear your
Podcast
about this if you have a Dynasty League take and some rankings.
Yes.
I recently started this Dynasty League with my friends from high school, and I think we're going into the 2nd season now. We did a Dynasty League 2 years ago that we had to disband, and then we redrafted, I think.
Why'd you have to disband it? Was he just like not enough people, or
no? Yeah,
or
just
did
because
somebody
people
get murdered?
Just people like bail. Like, I think of this as being like a very cool thing, and like it keeps like friends together over the years, and you also like are committed to it, and you don't bail before the season's over. But some people are like, oh, this is like annoying. Like, I don't want to have to pay attention to this. I'm in 6 other fantasy leagues. But like, I feel like if this is just your one keeper league that you go through the years.
Yeah. Well, is it a true Dynasty League where you get like rookie ranks and everything, or is it keepers?
What do you mean by that?
So a Dynasty League is when you get to keep pretty much most of the players, and you get them for a certain amount of years. And then like some Dynasty Leagues do contracts. Some Dynasty Leagues, they say you draft them. You do like a rookie draft, like guys coming in.
Yeah, we do rookie drafts each year.
Yeah,
so that's super fun. It's like rookies and free agents.
Yeah.
After a certain point, everybody gets locked.
Gotcha.
So if there's like a big move in free agency or somebody like crazy comes in, like I guess if there's like a rugby player or something who wants to play football.
Yeah, it's never turned into anything yet. There was the one guy who was on San Francisco. Actually, the guy on the Eagles who's a tackle.
Yeah.
He was a big rugby player. He was like 6'7" or something. He's like they actually might play him at guard this year.
You were talking about this earlier, like on the other podcast we recorded.
Yeah.
About like why more NBA players don't play football. I'm surprised in general more athletes don't try to play football in like other sports.
Yeah.
Like not necessarily basketball because you get paid well in like basketball, but
It's all guaranteed. That's the thing with
also
basketball.
It's guaranteed, yeah.
Although there's a lot of college basketball players who go out and play football eventually.
But if you're like a track athlete,
Like Donovan McNabb was a college basketball player. He was over at Syracuse, I think, right? Yeah, Syracuse. That's where he was.
Did he play basketball too?
Yeah.
Antonio Gates. Big time
makes
tight
more
end
sense.
for fantasy, man.
Jimmy Graham.
Oh, yeah,
Jimmy
Graham.
Graham.
Jimmy Graham.
Jimmy
yeah.
Graham. For like the first 5 years of his career, they could not like introduce him without mentioning, that he was a basketball player converted into a football player. So my fantasy dynasty wisdom, if you're gonna start a dynasty league, which I recommend you do, is you should definitely plan for the first season and plan for 5 years down the road. That's how I like to do it when I'm drafting after doing it twice. I feel like I set myself up pretty well. Because you could get a lot of steals if you pick people who are going to retire in like 2 years.
Yeah.
Because like you get a full season of them possibly still being in their peak. An example of that on my team is Drew Brees.
Gotcha.
Like he's a great backup quarterback for me. And I also have Carson Wentz on my team. So
and how many years do you get them for?
Forever. As long as we do the league.
All right,
Wow.
so you don't have like a contract or something, because I know some of them, when you do a dynasty draft, some of them they have like limits to the years that you get them for. So you get say you drafted Drew Brees, you get him for 6 years or 5 years or 3 years.
No, yeah, we just do them. They're your team. You can make trades with people. and you could cut them. Those are the
Gotcha.
only options. Yeah, we don't do contracts. Yeah, that's not how complex our dynasty is. Maybe we will think about that in the future, and like everybody was on the same contracts.
And so this was because you kind of wanted to keep people together a little bit more, and it kind of keeps people invested.
Yeah, and also like one of my favorite parts about playing Madden as a kid was just like
Being able to build
the team, yeah, and
and
play
do
it
multiple
over years.
seasons, yeah.
Like I remember playing like NCAA football and like playing a few seasons with my player, like my created players, and then I would export the draft class, and then I would like play seasons in Madden, and then I would draft from that and draft the players who were on my teams.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
it was pretty intricate.
So did you already have your rookie draft this year or no?
We have not. We're trying to do it very soon, so this could be very helpful.
Yeah.
If you have some good advice for people.
Well,
Metcalf
I think
and Brown do it.
Metcalf and Brown.
Also, wait, let me
I love
see whiteouts.
Metcalf.
Let me talk about my team so that
Yeah.
just we get it out there. I'll just like spit it out, and then you could judge it or whatever. I have Drew Brees, Aaron Eckler, Nick Chubb, Jarvis Landry,
I love Nick Chubb.
Taylor Gabriel,
Big Chubb.
Jared
with
Cook,
Chubb.
Cole Beasley, Ravens defense, Jake Elliott, Leonard Fournette, Gronkowski, which is I should probably
Yeah, but there's rumors
him?
There's rumors he may come out of retirement though. But
Really?
yeah, and he's like skinny like a crackhead now, so you have to.
Yeah, I saw that
yeah.
picture, man.
Dude, like he was on roids. I love like Gronk is the greatest time of all time, but there's no way he was not doing roids.
that's
if
probably
gets
why he
stats-
retired.
if he-
Honestly,
It might be.
No, well, I mean, I know
He
a
was
lot
getting
of players
banged
who
up,
look.
too.
They get like first off, he had so many injuries by the end.
Yeah.
But I know other players that after they stopped doing it, because when you stop working out for 6 or 8 months and you're not working out like the schedule that you're working out to be a football player, you will drop like ridiculously. Joe Thomas, I mean, he ended up retiring that year, but initially he wasn't initially fully committed to the retirement, and you saw he shrank a lot in the offseason. And that happens a lot with a lot of players who have to have bulk, like Gronkowski, like O linemen, where when you're playing, it's easy to bulk up when you're playing towards the season. And when you're lifting, and like a lot of them, and there's some guys who are gym rats, like Eric Weddle works out all year round.
Like Brian Urlacher still works out even though he's retired.
Yeah, so some guys they maintain some physique, but the physique changes because you're not working out the same.
Yeah.
Like I know Joe Thomas. If you see a picture of Joe Thomas now, he doesn't look like a left tackle. He looks like a guy who used to be an Abercrombie model.
Yeah.
So, I think Gronk probably doesn't come back, but I wouldn't.
I'm not
Wouldn't
dropping
rule
him.
it out.
Yeah, I also. How big are your benches for Dynasty?
Listen to how many people I have: Sammy Watkins, Devin Funchess, Mohamed Sanu, Tyrell Williams, Alfred Morris, Mike Gesicki, Dante Pettis,
Pettis, I like this year, man.
Taywan
If you saw the
Taylor,
Instagram.
Javon Wims, Saints D, Kalen Balaj, Antonio Gates, Chester Rogers.
You have
Matt
all the tight ends who are
Prater,
either retiring or who just started their
Josh
career.
Adams, Marshawn Lynch, and Rob Kelly.
But
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but
Plan
didn't-
for right now or 5 years.
There
Yeah.
you go.
Didn't Lynch just retire again though? Like
Did he officially retire? He's questionable right now.
That's the thing. He doesn't. Well, he's a free agent right now.
Oh yeah.
So I don't think he made the announcement. I know Ian Rappaport made the announcement.
Oh okay.
But I remember when Marshawn Lynch made the announcement the first time, he made the announcement himself. Mm-hmm. So he might not be fully committal at this point.
Yeah.
And maybe he's seeing what
Okay.
happens if there's an injury. Maybe get on a good team.
Yeah, and I can't blame him for like wanting to leave the Raiders and stuff. So
Well, no.
like
but
I know
that's
he's
his
from
hometown
no
team.
he's from
Yeah.
no he said
That's
he
why
always
he wanted to play for him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he goes but that was the year after they made the playoffs, and then like then the next year they missed the playoffs, and then last year they were just a complete shit show.
So there's probably like 3 really good running backs that you can get this year from Dynasty, and there's some guys that you could take flyers on. There was Josh Jacobs, who I think everybody knows, and people are drafting him in redraft leagues, like in the 3rd or 4th round. There's David Montgomery on Chicago, who gets a lot of comparisons to Kareem Hunt, and even had comparisons coming out of college to Kareem Hunt. I think he's probably a little bit more athletic and a little bit faster, and he can kind of fit the Kareem Hunt role that the head coach there was actually previously in Kansas City.
Yeah.
And he ran that offense with Kareem Hunt. they like all their running backs being able to catch, and that O-line's really good. The only question I ever have with Chicago is the quarterback, Mitch Trubisky. Not a huge fan.
I think Mitch Trubisky is underrated. I love the way the guy plays the game. I love quarterbacks who could pick up yards with their legs as well as their arm. And let's face it, he's been the best quarterback the Bears have had in a long time. I think he's been better than anything Jay Cutler's done with Chicago.
I also think Jay Cutler had some really bad offensive coordinators, and it got to a point where they didn't have an O-line at one point.
Yeah.
Their O-line was trash. Matt Forte was great. Like, they had a point where they surrounded him with all the good weapons, but they had a shitty defense, and then they also had a bad offensive line. I just don't think Cutler never really put it all together, but it was never
too much of the Jay Cutler Kool-Aid.
He's not in the league.
He just became like a legend, like without doing anything. Kind of like everybody was just like, Jay Cutler's amazing. Jay Cutler's amazing.
Well, yeah, I don't think
Well, he had like that one Pro Bowl year in Denver, though.
Yeah, but like, yeah, he had a Pro Bowl year, but like, a lot of players have Pro Bowl years at one point in their career.
I think he could have. Well, I think if you would have put him in maybe like a Shanahan offense, like I think kind of similar to what he had the Pro Bowl year.
Mm-hmm. He also had Brandon Marshall that year also with Denver.
Yeah, and he ended up having him again when he was in Chicago.
Yeah, I remember Bears almost made the playoffs that year too, but that was Packers owned that division. That was the year AP ran for 2,000, so it was tough.
Yeah, that's always a rough division, especially offensively. Then there's Miles Sanders from Philadelphia, who he was a Penn State guy. All the guys coming out of that area are always really athletic.
Penn State.
Yeah.
My brother goes there.
He had some issues, though, with fumbling, ball security. That's why I kind of put him at third. Plus, you never know with the Eagles. If they're one of those teams that if they think they made the mistake on a guy, then they'll go ahead and cut bait. So they kind of a lot like the Seahawks and the Patriots. That's why like Rashad Penny last year didn't really play much. Sony Michel, like if Sony Michel was not doing what he had to do, Bill Belichick, doesn't matter if you spent a first-round pick on him, he won't play you.
Yeah.
I also have Devin Singletary and Darrell Henderson on here. And then Justice Hill, Baltimore. Devin Singletary's on the Bills. I think their O-line's getting a bit better. Kind of plays a bit like LaShawn McCoy. And Darrell Henderson on the LA Rams, I mean, there's always question marks with Gurley. Kind of plays more of a scat back role, but he could kind of be like almost the Alvin Kamara in that offense. And Alexander Madison, I mean, kind of a bit bigger, bulky guy, can kind of be like, especially given the issues with Dalvin Cook with injury in the last few years. Another guy to kind of keep an eye on, especially because I think they're trying to build up that O-line a bit more. They spent some free agent capital and some draft capital into the O-line the past few years. So, and is constantly been trashed for the past few years, but it seems like they're constantly trying to build up on it again. And I don't think Kirk Cousins is as bad as some people make him sound. I think he's league average as far as quarterbacks go.
Yeah, people get so excited after one season.
Yeah, and actually he wasn't bad in fantasy last season.
Yeah, but it's like if you don't win, then what matters?
And plus he was getting paid way more money than Case Keenum was the year before, and Case Keenum they had about the same year, but obviously they're paying Cousins a lot more, and the Vikings just did a lot better the year they had Keenum.
Well, but part of it was they had a new offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Their O-line coach died.
Yeah.
So losing having those two issues right there.
Yeah.
And then their offensive line wasn't that good to begin with. It was a bunch of, it wasn't the best players in the world playing offensive line. It was a very, Kirk Cousins was under pressure a lot. So I think it's a bounce back year for Kirk Cousins. And also, if you're in redraft leagues, I don't really look at ADP too often, especially this early into the summer. I did for part of this episode, just to kind of get a glimpse of guys who might be going a little bit higher than I was expecting them to go. And Kirk Cousins is going late.
Yeah.
I'm shocked by how late he's going, especially considering his receivers go pretty high.
Mm-hmm. Diggs, Thielen.
Both are being drafted in the top 4 rounds. Some receivers that if you're in Dynasty Leagues to keep an eye on. I know you were talking about Brown. Were you talking about Marquise Brown or A.J. Brown?
A.J. Brown, baby.
All right, there we go. That's a guy who's number one in my heart. I'm shocked, but he's also been injured the last week. But for the long term, I like A.J. Brown.
Yeah. like people like remember, I'm a big Ole Miss fan. That's
why you brought him up.
Nasty
DK and
the nasty
AJ.
wideouts. People were talking about DK Metcalf, but the thing is, he wasn't even the best receiver on that team. It was AJ Brown. So
And DK Metcalf was injured last year. He's been injured a couple times.
yeah, he was.
But dude, that guy's a beast and has that ability to be a number one receiver, a real Calvin Johnson kind of level receiver.
Like, I remember I was like, he ended up getting drafted by the Seahawks, but I remember I think it was late. I think it was either early second round or late.
End of second round.
Yeah.
It was pick 64. I think it was the last pick in the second round.
I mean, like, it was when Casey was on the board. I think it was like late first round. I remember he would be the perfect pick for him because like I think AJ Brown's an overall better receiver, but depends on like what kind of offense you have. Like if I had a quarterback with a good deep ball like Aaron Rodgers or Pat Mahomes, DK Metcalf would be the guy I'd want. But if I had like Tom Brady, AJ Brown would be my guy. So it really depends. But I think
AJ Brown can play more spots and can be a slot receiver, can play flanker, can play X. Mm-hmm. He showed a little bit of ability to hold up against press at the end of the year. He played really well in the last 4 games last year in college.
Yes, he did.
He's actually shown very good ability as a route runner, good hands. I actually have him number 1 in my wide receiver dynasty ranks.
Yeah.
And now I wrote these ranks before the injury, but I think long term, I think he has a very good long term viability as a player in the NFL. And he's going to have Corey Davis there. Now the real problem with he got drafted by the Titans. And right now they have Ryan Tannehill and Marcus Mariota, and you're hoping Marcus Mariota takes a step forward.
Yeah, but the Titans, they always go through offensive coordinators like their tissue papers. Hopefully Mariota could get it together with this one. Like, I still believe in Mariota.
Yeah, I mean, I would feel more comfortable if they were getting an offensive coordinator that worked to his advantages.
Yeah.
Do you think Mariota's just going to get, like, big one year? Like, he's just going to get super, just wide?
Oh, you mean, like, work out and just get huge, like, jacked?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like, in his, like, later years?
Would that help him? Because then he'd be less athletic, and that's one of the things you have with him.
Yeah. Maybe it just changes his game down the road because he does have a good arm. If he becomes a pocket passer, then maybe he gets injured less.
So outside, my top 2 guys for Dynasty for wide receivers were A.J. Brown and the other Ole Miss receiver, DK Metcalf.
Right. Nasty wideouts.
The next 2 guys on my list are Deebo Samuel and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. Because J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, first off, I liked him a lot. And if you like, if you're the kind of guy who likes, totally blank. Oh, Juju Smith-Schuster, another J.J. name.
Yeah. But
not for nothing, they do a lot of the same things right. And I think J.J. Arcega-Whiteside is actually a bit more athletic. Both kind of post up really well. Both are really good route runners. I think both could play inside and outside. I think JJ is going to play way more outside. I think he plays more like Alshon Jeffrey than Juju does. But he's got great body control. Plays like a basketball player. And in fact, he played college basketball.
Yes, another one.
So JJ I like a lot, especially because he's got Carson Wentz throwing him the ball. Alshon's going to probably eventually be out of there. He's probably going to at least replace Nelson Aguilar by next year with the slot role. I like J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. And Deebo Samuel can play all 3 wide receiver positions, X, flanker, slot receiver, which is something that they appreciate in San Francisco. So provided Jimmy Garoppolo comes back to Jimmy Garoppolo when he got traded and plays a bit better than he was playing last year before the injury, I think that there's some real value with him.
Yeah.
And, between him and Pettis, you have 2 very good route runners, guys with good hands, and can play all spots around the line. So I think it's going to get fun once Deebo Samuel's up to speed, when they have a quarterback they think is healthy and good enough to play. Some other guys, you know who Terry McLaurin is?
No, I haven't.
Ohio State receiver, probably get overshadowed by Paris Campbell a lot, but I think he was the better of the 2.
Yeah.
Very fast, very good route runner, good hands, and he actually ended up getting drafted with his quarterback, Dwayne Haskins, to the Redskins.
Yeah.
I usually don't draft Redskins players.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
Because I just don't. Their medical team is apparently the worst in the NFL because their own left tackle wants to leave.
Like it's like Jordan Reed had like that one good year, but he's been banged up ever since then. Like
Darius Geis has had 3 procedures. Like they have 3 different players on that team that have had 3 procedures after being injured. Their medical team is horrible, and Trent Williams is basically wanting to leave the team because of it.
Yeah.
I usually don't draft Redskins players. I like Terry McLaurin. He's a guy who I really have high on my list. Hollywood Brown, if they got another quarterback there, I would feel if he went to another team, went to a more accurate quarterback with better deep ball passing. But if you think that Lamar Jackson's going to develop and going to be a better passer, then I see the pick there to take Hollywood Brown.
Yeah.
Hakeem Butler and Deontay Johnson are another two guys. Hakeem Butler just because he's got that size and speed. And again, another guy who could play all places around the line, but he's got that size. Like he looks almost kind of like AJ Green, and could basically be another AJ Green kind of player. Just pick the ball off the top of somebody's head. He's 6'4" now. He did some concentration drops, but he's a solid runner. Can deal with press pretty well. I think there's some questions with him coming out. He went to Arizona, so all the questions with Arizona. Whatever question you had with Arizona, there's a question with Arizona.
Yes.
It also makes it really fun because all the questions make it a very volatile team. Could be really good or could suck entirely. And Miles Boykin, another guy who, again, has big size, has some question marks with his game, but I think he's another guy who eventually will end up being a good player, another Baltimore guy. Mm-hmm. All comes down to Lamar Jackson with Hollywood Brown and Miles Boykin. And Deontay Johnson was a guy who was drafted by the Steelers, and I think they drafted him to kind of replace Antonio Brown.
Yeah.
Very good route runner.
Well, he's going to have a good mentor with Juju since Juju's the guy now for them.
But Juju's more of a slot receiver.
Yeah, that's true.
And he's not really like the elder statesman, knows how to play all positions really well. Juju's more like a combination of Anquan Bolden and Michael Crabtree.
Yeah.
Deontay Johnson's kind of like that quick, fast guy, but can beat you on the... Like, he's kind of... It's weird. Like, he might be the next Antonio Brown just because he has that... Like, the things that he does well are the same things Antonio Brown does well. That's a strange thing to say going from a guy who got drafted by the Steelers, but he's a guy to keep an eye on. And then the last two guys that I'll bring up are N'Keal Harry, who Patriots wide receiver. A lot of people have been giving him a lot of heat. I'm sure he's going much higher than I give him credit for, but I think he's going to end up
wrong
being,
with a Pats player.
You can go very wrong with the Pats player because Pats barely draft well to begin with.
That's true.
They somehow make everything work even if they draft horribly.
Yeah.
Because they just like taking the lottery picks and taking the shot. So.
And then like taking like the Isle of Misfit toys that like teams don't want, then making them stars. Like Wes Welker was like a scrub with Miami and San Diego, made him into a star. Chris Hogan, scrub with Buffalo, now good receiver. So.
And last guy I'll bring up is Andy Isabella because I think people would be upset if I didn't bring him up. Very athletic guy. Another guy went to Arizona. I don't know what his eventual fantasy value is. He's a small, quick guy. They might use him on a lot of different kind of as a gadget player. But he could play really well out of the slot, and he's got some real speed to him. So I don't know what his eventual role is. That's why he's not high up on my list. But he does have something to him that I would like to have if I was picking later rounds. That's a guy who I could see eventually being really good. And Arizona picked a lot of receivers in the draft this year.
Yeah.
3 or 4 rookies are on their team. So that's a lot. So that's a team that you might want to keep an eye on, seeing which one of their rookie receivers develops, if they stay there, if they end up getting some development out of them. And then tight end and QB really quick. There's really one tight end there that I think is going to really develop right away, and that's T.J. Hawkinson, drafted by the Detroit Lions. I think they really he was drafted in the first round. I think he was drafted to be Gronkowski, to be that I can use you to do anything role.
Yeah.
If there was the next Gronkowski, it's T.J. Hawkinson. Good route runner, good hands, can get up the seam.
Where was he drafted?
He was drafted in the first round, top 10 pick.
Wow, yeah, then he's definitely that.
But Eric Ebron was a top 10 pick and didn't really pan out for a long time.
Yeah, he's good in Indy now, but he was garbage when he was with Detroit.
I look at T.J. Hawkinson and I see a lot of the things that I liked about O.J. Howard, things that I liked about who's the other tight end? Hunter Henry. Guys who can block but can actually be out in have good hands, are athletic enough where they are a real mismatch weapon. Noah Fant on Denver's getting a lot of buzz. They were both Iowa State tight ends, and he's more of
they eat the card.
Yeah. So again, that's an offense. They're going with Flacco right now as their quarterback. I don't know where they're going to go in the future. That's why I'm not as high for Fant this year as a lot of people are, because they think that Flacco's just going to target the tight ends, which might be true, but there's always that X factor there. Plus, rookie tight ends take time to develop. I know that's why I have Hawkinson first. I just think his transition is going to be easier. Then there's Dawson Knox, who was drafted by the Bills.
Yeah, he's not a great receiver. I could tell you that. Dawson Knox.
He is
Not.
He's not.
He's a.
Well, they didn't use him a lot either as a receiver.
No, that is true, but still.
I know you're an Ole Miss.
like-
Is
I was like,
that
I'm-
you're
I was-
already?
it's
You
like
know
I-
that I'm talking about Ole Miss when you all say like I already know you're gonna talk
Yeah.
about.
The thing is, he's a better blocker than Evan Ingram was, but like he did not have the 10th of the athleticism as Ingram did. So maybe I'm just like that one like I'm like the stepmom or whatever who like misses your ex instead of like your current. Well, I was like that with Ole Miss tight ends. I see whoever Dawson Knox did, I'm like, it's not Evan Ingram.
There you go.
Yeah.
And the last two guys I'll bring up are Irv Smith and Jay Sternberger. Irv Smith is on the Minnesota Vikings. I think he's going to eventually replace Kyle Rudolph. Kind of looks and plays like Charles Clay. Used to be on the Bills in Miami, and now he's in Arizona. And Jay Sternberger, tight end that got drafted by Green Bay Packers. I think that's basically what you need to hear. So, okay, well, whoever's getting thrown to by Aaron Rodgers, sometimes it's a good thing to take a flyer by that guy.
Yeah.
And I don't think, again, that's a guy who's probably more of a few years down the line role than a right-now role. And then the couple of quarterbacks, number one overall, Kyler Murray.
Yeah.
Because if Kyler Murray hits, running quarterback,
Picks up a lot of yardage points with his legs as well as his arm.
Also extra touchdowns in the red zone.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, the strange thing with him is, so when I looked at the ADP, he was going way higher than I thought he was going to go. Like that's a guy who's getting drafted 8th round, and I'm like, I get the upside there. You get a cool new head coach with a crazy offense that might catch the league off guard, and you got
Is he officially the starter?
Kyler Murray, yeah. So, and you get a running quarterback who is going to have a lot of new fancy weapons, has David Johnson and Larry Fitzgerald as the elder statesman on the team. I think he's going to be a fun player, and you're looking for a guy who will probably end up getting you a lot of, I think can end up being a league winner if you were getting him in the right spot. But I don't know how long
He better be good if he picked football over baseball.
Well, he got picked at the spot where you do make more money than baseball. That's the funny thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He was one of the
for
few
sure.
guys who will actually probably make more money than he would have made in baseball,
Yeah.
even where he was just picked and what his contracts were. So that was the crazy thing.
I hope
Very
he's
rarely
super
does that
good
happen.
And then goes to baseball after.
Well, he could do
Baseball
that.
Be like
needs
Deion
Kyler-
Sanders did. Like he went from
Baseball
football.
needs that.
Yeah.
Like nobody watches baseball. Everybody hates baseball.
But the big worry
It's
with
just so sad
It is.
because it's just such a
It's
wonderful
America's-
sport.
it's
and
America's
it's like such a
pastime and now-
strategic sport.
Yeah.
the big worry with Kyler Murray is he's small. He can get injured. Maybe his game doesn't translate to the NFL. And that's kind of a worry a lot of times with rookie quarterbacks. And then
Imagine just thinking like, just being in the NFL and being like, yeah, if you don't start me, I'm just gonna go play baseball. Fuck you.
he's one of the few guys that could do that.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson also.
Yeah. Well, Russell Wilson.
Well, Russell Wilson's
such a
and like you'd be
flex.
stupid to like do anything with Wilson. Like, but yeah.
But he already won a Super Bowl.
And
Yeah.
he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league, so you wouldn't do that with him.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. Oh well, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then I have Dwayne Haskins, Drew Lock, Will Greer, and Daniel Jones. And Dwayne Haskins is probably going to start eventually. Big worry if they don't have Trent Williams, their left tackle. But like I said, he already has chemistry with Terry McLaurin. He seems to be. I liked him at Ohio State. He can hit a lot of the short routes really well. He's good at leading the receiver. He didn't really play a very complex offense, and he didn't have to make really hard throws a lot of the time. But he had a really good year this year, and I thought the Giants should have taken him. And imagine him on the Giants with Odell. Like, they could just run crossing patterns all the time and take it in for a touchdown. But it is what it is at this point. They didn't take a guy who was actually kind of accurate. They took Daniel Jones. That's why Daniel Jones is even on the list. I put Will Greer here because you never know what's going to happen with Cam Newton. And he showed some deep throw accuracy.
Yeah.
And some real gunslinger mentality that if he ends up popping eventually, or Cam Newton gets injured and they need to replace him, he might end up being something.
I'm getting some PTSD from Will Greer. He before he was at West Virginia, he played at Florida. I think he got kicked out or something. But I remember Ole Miss, they were like undefeated, like pretty deep. No, it was. Well, they're still undefeated at the time. I think this was a week after we beat Bama the second time, riding high. We go into Florida. He just lights us up. So I get PTSD anytime I hear the word Will Greer. But no, he is a good solid pick. I would honestly think he's better than Jones. I think he might be better than Haskins if I'm being honest with you.
So, and then the last guy was Drew. Drew Lock was really third, and Drew Lock is actually kind of being groomed to be the starter in Denver eventually. Drafted in the second round, but they're not committed to him. So if they end up, busting a Flacco and Drew Lock, they'll be able to draft somebody and not feel like they totally burnt a pick. So overall, that kind of helps some of the ideas that, I know you have to kind of draft somewhat specifically when you are drafting for Dynasty.
Yeah.
You have to do what works for your team. So if you need a tight end, TJ Hawkinson. If you're drafting number 1 overall, I suggest taking Josh Jacobs just because the team, he fits perfectly what that team wants to do. He's a true 3-down back. He's maybe not Barkley, but he's somewhere in the spectrum from Barkley down to I would put him behind Joe Mixon as far as a player goes. Maybe even Nick Chubb I would put ahead of him as far as a player goes.
I think this is going to be Nick Chubb's season.
I'm excited for Nick Chubb, man. And
pound it with Johnson and Chubb. I saw that as like T-shirt in Cleveland.
Oh, that was a T-shirt last year.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was the Dynasty stuff. I was shocked that actually that went a lot longer than I was expecting.
But that was very cool because I have not done any research for fantasy whatsoever, and now you just helped me for my league. I'm having a draft in like a week.
Oh, so nice. I guess that you scheduled your draft, and then so the other part of this episode, I had 5 biggest bust predictions going into 2019.
Wait, are you gonna have a league with all of the people who are in this, who have been on your podcast?
That would be a cool
That'd be
thing.
a good idea. Yeah,
that would be an interesting thing.
There has to be a comics league, maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know of any yet.
But you should lead
should
it as the guy who has a
the fantasy
as
football
a podcast comedy
right
thing going on.
Yeah, I might have to look into that, especially because there definitely is enough people who I know that do stand up that would do it. So the next segment on the show is we have 5 biggest bust predictions going into 2019, and right off the list I have Eric Ebron, who I don't think is going to repeat what he was doing last year, and I don't know where he's necessarily going. But he was he was tight end 4 last year.
Tight ends are always iffy because, like, different offenses use tight ends differently, and, like, the only reliable tight end was Gronk. Like, I feel like every year the tight ends change who the main tight end is.
Well, now it's Travis Kelce. Now Gronk's gone.
No, it could
pretty much Travis Kelce.
Could be George Kittle also.
Well, the top 3 tight ends, I think, on most people's boards are
Kelce, Kittle, and Ertz, right?
Yeah, pretty much. And then I think, at least for me, my next 2, I have Hunter Henry, O.J. Howard, and then Evan Ingram. So, and shockingly, that was another one where I looked at it, and Ingram's going in the 4th round in some leagues. Yeah. And that's shocking considering he's had issues like in the past. Now, he could easily be a 1,000-yard
But you also have to look at, like, for like a good part of the season, he's going to be their number 1 receiver. So that's probably... And we know he could run, he could catch. I know he's had drop issues before, but he's going to get a lot more targets this year.
Sometimes you're just the only game in town.
Yeah.
So, I think the steam is cooled off with Eric Ebron. One of the issues is they have Jack Doyle, and Jack Doyle's coming back. And when Jack Doyle was in the game, Ebron didn't do it well.
Yeah.
Ebron didn't do anything a lot of the time. So, yeah, Jack Doyle gets injured like every other week. So there is that upside. And again, you're getting a guy getting thrown to by Andrew Luck. But even Andrew Luck
gets hurt all the time. You don't know what could happen to him.
He's injured right now in camp.
Yeah.
So I just don't see Eric Ebron repeating anywhere near what he did last year. He seems like one of those guys that it's like, if I was punting to get a tight end, I would take him the 13th or 12th round. But I just don't think he's getting anywhere near what he was doing before. Another guy who I think is going to bust is... does anybody else have a list of players that they have?
Yeah.
I have. I was thinking, want to know who I think would be a big kind of a bust? Mark Ingram. Because he's getting up there in age. Like, Ravens' offensive line is not what the Saints' offensive line is. And they don't commit.
Yeah. Have you ever seen, like... the Ravens running backs for a given year? It changes every 3 weeks.
No, it was weird because before that they were consistent with Jamal Lewis and then later with Ray Rice. But since Ray Rice, it's been like just like a who's who of like.
It'll switch through three different players.
Yeah.
I got a bust for you.
Who?
Julian Edelman.
That's not for nothing. I like that pick. I do like.
I think
I was close to putting him.
People are gonna have more people to cover wide receivers, and like he's not gonna be as good as he's been in the past.
Yeah, but
he's getting older.
Just play zone coverage.
Yeah.
Play up against the line.
He's a bad person.
Edelman's a bad person.
Oh yeah, he
he
has some domestic abuse type stuff.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
Which is why he's so loved in Boston.
Exactly. It's terrible.
Yeah, and also he's getting up there in age. He had torn ACL last year.
Like how long did Welker last? Not very long. Slot receivers don't last very long.
But
Larry Fitzgerald.
Yeah.
But he's like the receiver though.
Yeah,
he's
but he plays mostly out of the slot now.
True.
And that's what his most successes come. His recent, like the recreation of his career, his late stage career has been out of the slot.
Yeah.
He's played this big slot role because he's not fast anymore, but he's got the size, he's got the hands. Now the problem is Edelman doesn't have the size and doesn't have the kind of the ability that Larry Fitzgerald has.
He's like an outside receiver, yeah.
Larry Fitzgerald's basically playing tight end, but like is better than most tight ends. Like he's playing like a good move tight end role almost.
Is he still playing?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
He's a fun one.
How
I love
old
Larry
is he?
Fitzgerald. He's got like 35 at least now, right? Something like that.
36.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So he's
he's been in the league since like 04, so a long time.
Football is weird because people don't get up that high.
Yeah.
It's getting up there though. I guess Tom Brady is just the one who's up there.
Yeah.
But I like both of those picks, Mark Ingram and Julian Edelman, man. My second one was Tevin Coleman. And I think he's a guy that I think people get too high on the Shanahan offense, and we've seen Tevin Coleman have the ball. Like we've seen him at the end of last year be the lead guy. So now everybody's thinking, well, it was Sarkisian, but like he still got usage there. He just seems to be permanently locked in that running back 2 category, and he's never going to break that next echelon. So why would I draft that guy where he's where I'm thinking he's like going in a Shanahan offense? I'd rather get one of the other guys on that offense who aren't getting the hype right now, especially because he could easily not be the guy eventually. And then he quickly used a 2-back system when he had Devontae Freeman and Tevin Coleman. So I would take the guy who's cheaper and maybe has the better opportunity. Like I would think Matt Breida.
Yeah.
Who tiny, played well, always seemed like he was going to get hurt every week last year, but at least you're getting a guy who, now you're going to get your quarterback back. They have a lot more weapons. The defense is going to be better, hopefully. So I think that was, and that was one of the ones we forgot to do in the last episode, San Francisco. I think that's probably the team that could easily get to first in their division. But, so yeah, do you guys have any a second or third?
All right. I know this take might be kind of hot, but wonder who I'm picking to be a bust?
Tom Brady?
No. Fuck no. Antonio Brown. I know it's out there, but think of it. We already know the guy's a head case. He's playing with Derek Carr. Like Derek Carr he's fine and stuff, but he's not Ben Roethlisberger. He's got John Gruden as his head coach, and as I mentioned before, as a head case, Oakland. They're already in the process of moving. It just seems like there are too many things that could go wrong. Like I think the guy's still it's not so much from him not being good, just personality conflict I could see happening, and also he's an injury away from having Nathan Peterman as his starting quarterback, and that's something no receiver wants.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I mean, we saw Derek Carr have issues with Amari Cooper last year. Now, granted, Antonio Brown is better than Amari Cooper and has way better hands than Amari Cooper, but also he's been slightly injured for camp. He hasn't played the last week or so. So you're not getting that chemistry with Carr. He's dealing with a foot issue. He just went to go see a specialist. You're talking about a first year in a new offense. He's in his 30s now. Yeah. There's a lot of reasons not to like Antonio Brown. And he's going in the second, third round area. He could easily underperform. Oh, yeah. Especially, it all comes down to the quarterback. And even if Derek Carr has a resurgence year, it doesn't mean that it was necessarily because, Derek Carr was checking it down a lot.
Yeah.
And he wasn't throwing to his open reads down the field a lot.
Yeah.
So I have questions with it. Maybe second year in an offense for Derek Carr works better, and also still has Tyrell Williams to throw to and a couple of other players. I think there's a lot to that. Did you have somebody else?
Nah. I don't know enough who's supposed to be good this year to know who's a bust, to be honest.
Gotcha.
I'm here for comedic relief.
All right, there you go.
And jazz hands, which you can't see on the podcast portion of it, but the
No.
video you can.
Yeah, tune into the video.
Is there a podcast version?
Yeah, this gets uploaded to iTunes and also to YouTube.
Oh, sweet. Hey,
Yay.
Mom.
So my next guy is Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
And I just think Derrick Henry, there's way too much hype coming off those last 3 or 4 games last year where he was running it. They were playing with a lead, and they were using him as a tractor trailer. I just don't think that the way they're going to run that team this year is going to play like that. I just don't think he's going to be as good as everybody's thinking he is. And he's going as a 3rd-round pick, which blows my mind. Because people took him as a 3rd-round pick last year, and if you had Derrick Henry on your team last year, you didn't make it to the playoffs.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I have him as a ultimate potential bust. Would you have anybody else?
I actually have 2. They're both teammates who I think could be busts. Both from
Bust brothers.
Yes, Bust brothers. Both from the NFC champion LA Rams. I could see Jared Goff being a bust. Yeah, I know he puts up good numbers, but that's mainly because of his line, great receivers. Sean McVay's a great coach, and that's also because he has Todd Gurley with them, who is my other bust. Nothing to do. No, Todd Gurley's when healthy, he's the best running back in football. But that's the main question. Is he going to remain healthy? Because you saw that play from him. It was C.J. Anderson carrying the load, who's fine back. But if Todd Gurley's not getting the ball and C.J. Anderson it's because he was banged up. And I was sort of questionable about Todd Gurley when he first came into the league. Because if you remember when he was playing in Georgia, like he destroyed his leg, you know?
There's other players who've had that issue too. And another Georgia running back, Nick Chubb, has had that issue.
Yes. But I feel like not to the extent as Gurley. Granted, like Gurley's a better player.
Chubb's knee was bad.
Yeah.
Now, the thing is, we saw Chubb play again in college, and then we saw him come and play in the NFL.
Yeah.
So we've seen multiple years since the injury. But he nearly destroyed his knee.
Yeah.
And Gurley is, he had an ACL, but it didn't seem like he had complications from it initially.
Yeah.
And I guess now, after a few years, you're starting to see, okay, he's got bone spurs, he's
Yeah.
got some arthritis. But there's other players who play with arthritis.
Yeah.
Sony Michel.
Yeah.
I feel like he has like 1 or 2 more years of being peak.
Yeah.
And then it'll start to decline. I feel like that's like what every peak running back does.
And I think they're going to limit his carries this year.
Yeah.
So I'm not as worried with him. But we saw it with Dalvin Cook, where he went down 4 games into the year.
I remember the year he was drafted. I thought, man, this guy, I think he's the best running back for that specific draft. And he looked like he was on the way to it until what was it, week 3 he got hurt.
Yeah, week 3 or 4
Yeah.
he tore his ACL.
And he's never been the same since.
Well, and there was a lot of reasons why last year he didn't come back. And it takes some time to come off an ACL.
Oh yeah, it's like a year at least for ACLs.
Yeah, and I think part of it is everybody got spoiled. They saw Adrian Peterson and Jamal Charles both come off an ACL and come back with no complications and run for 2,000 yards.
But AP's a freak though. Like, not only did he come back, he had his best season coming off of that ACL injury.
Yeah. Another guy who I have is Marlon Mack, another guy who keeps getting a lot of hype, and I think it's because they go Andrew Luck, offensive line, good, but I just don't think he's a good player.
Yeah.
You were bringing up Jared Goff before.
Yeah.
The good thing about Jared Goff is I don't think you have to spend a high pick to get Jared Goff.
Yeah, that's...
And especially in a league where quarterbacks don't cost a lot.
Yeah,
if you're playing in a super flex league, which I might suggest people try that out.
Yeah.
He might become something where that's an actual issue. But if you're taking him at QB 14, I don't really worry about.
And plus you could, worst case scenario, you could probably take Ryan Fitzpatrick or somebody off of waivers.
Yeah, and still get some of the production that you were going to get before. Yeah, I'm not as worried with Jared Goff. Todd Gurley, considering where people have to draft Todd Gurley.
Yeah.
I really do worry about it. So, but and Marlon Mack, I kind of had some real worries about too. And did you have any other players?
No, that's really it.
My only other thing was any QB you draft before the 3rd or 4th round, because I just don't think they're going to return the value that
unless you could get Patrick Mahomes, maybe.
Well, that's kind of that marker of Patrick Mahomes. but you can get a lot of the production from another position, like from another player,
That
and
is
you're
true.
losing out of positions of
True.
value.
True.
So I'm probably not going to get Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
But it's not that I think he's going to be bad, but I think he's not going to perform to a second round pick value.
Yeah, he did throw 50 TD passes last year, and only 3 quarterbacks have done that. Nobody's ever done it twice, so that's going to be a difficult feat to repeat. Also, Kareem Hunt for like a good half of that year. He's not going to have that luxury anymore.
Yeah.
So.
And not only that, but you're
Tyreek Hill might get suspended also, so there's that.
Yeah, like that was weird because the way the league made their announcement about Tyreek Hill, and it was a horrendous case. They're like, yeah, we're not doing anything right now. We're closing the investigation for right now, but you never know what's going to come out in a month.
Like I remember a few years ago, it was the year of Zeke was eventually suspended, but I remember I took Zeke in like the 4th round that year because nobody was picking him. Like I had Bell and Zeke as my 2 running backs, so I go, hey, it's like he's the best running back in the league. It's like he's not suspended right now, so I'll have him for even if it's 8 games, it's fucking worth it. So and I ended up going. I think I ended up going like 14-2. That is like I ended up having like however many games you play in fantasy. I think I was like 10-2 or something like that.
Yeah. So that was the guys who might be the biggest busts. Are there any guys that you guys really want on your team but you don't think you'll ever get?
Well, the obvious first overall pick for me would be Saquon Barkley. That's because he's
I'm kind of more looking for guys outside that first round range.
Outside first round range, like I mentioned before, Patrick Mahomes is like be the first quarterback anybody should pick. Guy's got a cannon.
I think for a lot of people it's quarterbacks because like for me it's Baker Mayfield. I want to have Baker Mayfield on my team, and he's going in the 6th round right now.
Wow. He's gonna be even better than he was last year because that's how you progress. And also he's got Odell Beckham now.
Yeah.
Who makes you become a good quarterback?
Yes.
Like he made Eli Manning look good, and we saw what Eli Manning does when Odell Beckham
not
doesn't
around.
do well. Yeah.
Yeah, and now you have a really accurate quarterback with a receiver that can catch. These are 2 marriages that have not been in either of these people's lives in a long time.
Yes.
And Odell's going to take some coverage, so then you're going to have Jarvis Landry getting open. And then you also have like 3rd and 4th receivers that are pretty good too with Antonio Callaway and Rashad Higgins. And then they also have David Njoku and hopefully the revival of David Njoku. So
I think there's also some kind of like sports mojo in the world, and like the sports mojo is like around Cleveland right now. And now that LeBron left, like they need something to get behind.
Yeah, right. And that's definitely, and I'm a big Cleveland Browns fan. I was a fan throughout the 0-16 year, which was fun. Thank you to Deshaun Kaiser and Hugh Jackson.
Hey, they got you guys Baker Mayfield, so that's something.
It did happen. That is true.
And you guys got to throw a parade. So like Jets, like when we suck, it's not even funny. We just suck. Like it's like hey, we suck, but we're proud of it. Yeah. Well, not proud of it, but you could have fun. You could have fun. That is true.
That was funny.
For
Especially when they showed it 700 times. It got funnier and funnier. After you saw it once, it just got funnier and funnier each time. It was such good comedy. I'm so glad that ESPN played it thousands and thousands of times.
I'm having Vietnam flashbacks as you went through that.
It was just like stupid.
Yeah.
Like it's just because like the news is tabloid and stuff like that, and they wanted to like exploit it and like go after like Mark Sanchez, but it was also just like,
well, it happened in a very public game.
It was like Thanksgiving,
Yeah.
like I remember like that Thanksgiving was the worst. I remember my mom made dressing, which is like the southern version of stuffing. That's my favorite dish. Like you instead of make it put it in a turkey, like make it as a separate dish. Like she had like a new Pyrex dish for it. As soon as took it out of the oven, dish exploded. Had no dressing for Thanksgiving that year. I go, damn it! How can this day get any worse? A few hours later, I saw how it could get worse. A play that will live in infamy, something that I will never be able to wash out of my memory.
Well, are there any other players you guys really want to get in your drafts that you don't think you'll get?
oh yeah.
That you think are just going to be, you're not going to take them as high? Actually, Kelce, man. Travis Kelce.
Yeah.
Dude, he's going in like the top of the 2nd round, almost in first rounds in some
Yeah.
drafts. That's really pricey for a tight end.
Like back when Gronk was in his prime, it was worth it. But like
Even still, I don't think it was, because you still have to play 2 wide receivers and 2 running backs. And
he was still, you didn't know when he was going to get injured. So
I don't know. With tight end, I just never think it's worth it if you're taking him in the first round, especially if you're taking Travis Kelce in the first round. Like, I get it, but at the same time, I don't. Like, it just seems very pricey. And I guess, like, if you stack, I remember doing the notes on it, and if you stacked him up against the best receivers and best running backs of last year, he came in at like 15, 16, 17.
Yeah.
So, like, I could maybe if you're talking about end of the second round, I can get behind that mentality, but you still only play one tight end.
But I'd still rather wait for like Ertz or George Kittle, than like wait a round.
Who are going at least a round later.
Yeah.
A lot of the time. Or, you take a shot on a tight end later in the draft. That
Go for my boy Evan Ingram or O.J. Howard, as you said. So.
O.J. Howard, if you're really looking for somebody, David Njoku, who's probably going a lot later, who's kind of lost that luster that some people have had for him.
Yeah.
And Hunter Henry from the Chargers I've been touting.
Yes, he's good, but he's been banged up the past couple of years, right? That's why they had to bring Antonio Gates out of retirement, right?
Yeah, but I also think that now with Hunter Henry, he's had more than a year to heal from that injury, and we saw him back during the playoffs. So he's at least at the point where he was game shaped to at least do something.
Yes.
And now he's got another 8 months to heal before he goes ahead and plays. So I'm a little bit more eager to see Hunter Henry on the field than some other players. So I think I don't think I'm going to get O.J. Howard, and I like watching O.J. Howard play. I know you and O.J. Simpson.
Yeah,
you're not going to get able to draft him. I don't think he's available in most leagues.
I know, like you was like, okay, what was like, what player you want to talk about on the podcast? It's like O.J. It's like, oh, so O.J. Howard. No, I meant a different O.J. But it's funny because on his Twitter he's been talking about like he's been like giving people fantasy advice. If I'm taking advice from anybody, it's definitely gonna be O.J.
So I think that wraps up this episode. If you want, you can follow Jordan at JFreeze. That's JFREEE. That's 3 E's. ZE. Again, you could always Venmo him at Jordan-Freed. That's FRIED.
I do weird things, very weird things.
For money. And
whatever you request, I'll do it if it's the right price.
And you can come to one of his shows. He's got one coming up. You want to plug your show?
Yeah, August 10th, Circuit Break. It's a multimedia comedy variety show that I've been doing for a little bit. And we got Nick Callis coming up from New York City. He's originally from New Jersey. That's where he grew up. And he performs at the Comedy Cellar, Caroline's on Broadway. And he's one of my faves. He's a cool young comic, and you probably want to catch him before he's in like movies and TV shows and stuff like that, because he's a good-looking dude and he's musical and like does a bunch of shit.
I have a good question. Where is this taking place?
This is happening at Rhino Comedy.
Where is Rhino Comedy?
It is in Suffern, New York.
Proud jewel of Rockland County.
96 Lafayette Ave, baby.
There you go. Plugging in the Rhino for the first time on the podcast.
Yeah, it's happening.
It's probably where most of us have met.
Yeah.
And then Harry Van Ness is the other guy who's been on the podcast, the other guest. And you can follow him at Harry, like Harry from Harry Potter, or Harry Balzania. Van as in the kind of car that you could drive, and Ness as Harkness. I don't know. Ness as N-E-S-S.
Yes, and just a couple of plugs I'd like to make. I will be performing September 5th at Levity Live, and it's like West Nyack, New York, Palisades Mall. Mic'd up, great show. Dave Satzig, great impressionist who's hosting it. And on September the 14th, I'll be performing at Greenwich Village in New York City for the Evan Weiss Showcase, and I'm really excited about that. So if you have time, you could check either of those two shows out, or don't, because I also do weird things, but unlike Jordan, I don't do them for money.
He won't charge you for the weird things.
No.
So if you want, you can follow the podcast at Draftvice on Twitter, at Draftvice_football on Instagram. You can follow me at Brojo Death Punch. That's BROJO. Death is in the end of life, and punch, like you might want to do to me by the end of each of these episodes. And if you're listening to this on iTunes, please subscribe, leave a review, rate it 5 stars, preferably 5 stars.
5 stars.
And if you're watching it on YouTube, like it, subscribe. You can leave a comment. I'm not quite sure I'll read it. Those comments get a little weird sometimes on YouTube. But if you check out the Instagram, we've been posting a lot of new fun stuff. And send out some requests on Twitter and Instagram for some of the topics you want us to discuss. Hopefully we'll get some of these guys back on and get some other rotational guests on soon.
Could we have like a 45-team fantasy league?
Everybody gets a third of a QB.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We get 1% of I get half of Patrick Mahomes' leg.
I get Baker Mayfield's right pinky finger.
Well, no. Some people just won't get points from quarterbacks. Some people won't get points from running backs.
It's all super flex.
Yeah,
It's all the
super
spots are
flex.
flexed.
And somehow Nathan Peterman won't get
It's
drafted.
really deep, yeah.
Anyway, thanks for tuning in. See you next time.
All right.
Thanks, y'all.
When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous. I'm about to pass. I'm about to puke.